They have warned the gates of hell will open further. Today, Iran was seeking to send some hell to those on the receiving end of its missiles, publishing footage said to show its upgraded missile capability. Across the Middle East, smoke and flames are an Iranian calling card in once allied nations, now targeted for their associations with the great Satan of the United States and Israel. Tonight, the US consulate in Dubai was attacked by drones. The smoke rising in the night sky. The Iranians had warned such sites would be attacked, and they are being. This is one of 1,000 attacks the UAE says it has faced since the start of this war just 4 days ago. Qatar is also being targeted. Intercepts taking down Iranian missiles. Attacks in Saudi Arabia have left the monarchy there considering whether to join the military action, something that would bring a religious element to this war and further inflame the region.
They hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of leaving everything alone. All of a sudden they had missiles shot in, which shows you the level of evil that we're dealing with.
Israel continues to be in Iranian sights with multiple strikes day and night. But as Iran fires out, America and Israel fire in, pursuing a myriad of ever-changing military objectives, targeting locations said to be linked with the government, military and security structure. This building housed the assembly of experts, those who will elect the next Ayatollah. It's not clear if any were inside at the time. However, the Iranians say many other civilian areas are being hit, including hospitals, and warn of the risk of this war escalating.
The process that has begun will soon reach Europe. If countries think they can sit safely in a corner until this war, this conflict ends, and then take a share of it, they are gravely mistaken. The fire of this war is highly contagious and will engulf the entire world.
There's no longer any attempt to negotiate peace, and this is the reality when diplomacy fails. Coffin after coffin. These bearing the bodies of girls killed when their school was hit on the first day of this war. All the girls in this video were among the 165 killed. Child victims of adult actions, of whom there will be many more as this war continues.
Well, Emma is with me now with a remarkable revelation tonight that weapons have been smuggled into Iran since the 12-day war against Iran last June. The aim to supply rebel Kurdish forces. Emma, potentially this is a really significant development. What can you tell us?
So I've been speaking with Kurdish contacts over the past days, and they tell me that they believe that the United States is attempting to foment some kind of ground operation within Iran itself, and that since June, since the 12-day war, this has, you can probably hear one of the intercepts going off just over there. Since the 12-day war, they've been trying to get weapons into the country in order to give the Iranian Kurdish fighters an opportunity to start to try and take positions within Iran. Now, this is entirely hugely significant without question, because of course one of the big issues that's been being discussed so many times is what America is going to do without boots on the ground. Now, potentially it could be that they do believe they have boots on the ground. Those boots on the ground would be Kurdish. Now, we know that President Trump spoke with Kurdish leaders over the past couple of days. We don't know what the topic of conversation was. Without question, there will be alarm in places like Erbil here, because they know that if they are seen to be in any way aligning with the war, there will be Iranian retribution. But it is very hard to say no to President Trump, and that will be one of the big issues weighing on them. We don't know whether this will work. We don't know whether it will take place. but certainly the messages coming out of the Kurdish population over the last few days is that they are willing to do this, they are keen to do this, and it is something they've prepared for really quite some significant amount of time. However, as we know, the Kurds have been badly let down by the Americans before when they've tried to fight wars with them and for them and found that they've been abandoned afterwards.
OK, Emma, thank you. And we should just mention we can actually very clearly hear some activity up towards that US base near the airport, just a few miles from where we are tonight. We'll be back to you a bit later in the programme. Extraordinary developments that you're bringing us this evening. So thank you very much indeed for that. Now, the Prime Minister, as we've been discussing, has been treading a very careful line on Britain's response to America's war on Iran, favouring defence over attack. A Royal Navy warship will now be sent, but to help protect RAF Akrotiri on Cyprus from Iranian drone attack. The base was hit by one on Sunday.
It is one of the most advanced warships we have. HMS Dragon is one of 6 Type 45 destroyers in the Royal Navy's fleet. Today, work was ongoing as it was docked in Portsmouth to prepare the ship for its deployment to the Middle East as tensions continue to escalate. Purpose-built for anti-aircraft and anti-missile warfare and hosting a crew of more than 200, this footage released by the Ministry of Defence shows exactly what HMS Dragon is capable of. At the heart of the ship is the Sea Viper missile system designed to track and destroy aerial threats. It will add to the island's security after France and Greece also pledged support following drone attacks aimed at RAF Akrotiri, the British base in Cyprus. So far, one drone attack has got through, 2 others have been intercepted, but it will take HMS Dragon around a week for it to reach the region after it sets off. In the meantime, the base RAF Akrotiri is expected to remain a critical part of the UK's involvement in this conflict. In the past 24 hours alone, jets have taken off from here to conduct operations across the Middle East. This footage shows an unmanned aircraft being shot down in Jordanian airspace by the British military. Similar operations have taken place over Iraq and Qatar as the UK's role in protecting allies becomes more clear and the conflict continues to escalate. Shihab Khan, News at 10, Cyprus.
Well, after America and Israel launched their attacks on Iran on Saturday morning, it took no time for the conflict to spread to the west of us here, to Lebanon, where Hezbollah is based. Significantly today, Israel sent ground troops across its border into southern Lebanon. That's on top of its airstrikes on the capital Beirut, targeting, Israel says, Hezbollah commanders, their command centres and weapons stores.
There were countless warnings that attacks on Iran would quickly escalate into a wider war. From vantage points around Beirut, we are watching that escalation. But there are signs that extending the war into Lebanon may have been part of the Israeli plan. The pools of smoke above the capital this morning from targets hit overnight were part of a massive response to a volley of rockets fired by Hezbollah in support of Iran. The Israeli military would have expected nothing less. They are releasing drone footage of their strikes and moving troops across the border into southern Lebanon. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited an airbase today. He has unfinished business with Hezbollah and is not wasting the opportunity to try and finish them off. Hezbollah made a very big mistake when it attacked us, he told his pilots. We have already responded with force and will respond with even greater force. The price, of course, is being paid by the civilian population, tens of thousands moving out of areas either bombed or, according to Israeli warnings, about to be bombed. The famous Beirut Corniche is now home to hundreds of newly homeless. If they had tents or shelter, this might be called camping. Salam Halawi is a single mother of 4 daughters. Her worldly possessions sit with her on a public bench. In the day it's warm enough, but at night in early March it's freezing. We fled our village in South Lebanon to move to a suburb of Beirut after an earlier war, she told me. And now this has happened and we've lost our home again. We're on the streets. There is a huge effort being mobilized to feed the displaced. It's Ramadan, so most will fast all day before being offered this very simple iftar in the evening. And Hezbollah are showing no signs of giving up, with news tonight of 8 further rockets being sent into Israel and 2 Israeli tanks being attacked as they moved onto Lebanese territory. People here are bracing for another noisy night. When wars in the Middle East escalate, it always seems to be Lebanon that gets hit early and hit hard. The great majority of Lebanese want nothing to do with this conflict, but they are right in the middle of it. James Mates, News at 10, Beirut.
Well, we reported a little earlier on Iran's unexpected targeting of oil and gas production belonging to some of its near neighbours among the Gulf states. We've learned today that some of those states are now considering a sea change of their own, retaliation against Iran. Rohit, back in the studio, has the details. Rohit.
And Julie, what ITV News is learning this evening is that Gulf states, which only a few days ago had more or less ruled out strikes inside Iran, are now rapidly reassessing their position. It is a move which would have the potential to reshape this conflict entirely. We understand that some of those countries are in active conversations with one another about the next steps, not only defensively, but offensively too. And some are even setting aside old rivalries as they consider making decisions which just 48 hours ago seemed like not quite unthinkable, but certainly unlikely. We're hearing from a senior Saudi source who is telling ITV News that it has clearly stated that it does not permit the use of its airspace or territory to target Iran and is not party to any escalation. But in light of recent aggression, the kingdom reserves the right to take all necessary measures to safeguard its security, protect its territory and ensure the safety of its citizens and residents. And a senior official from another Gulf government saying it had been caught off guard by the scale and the scope of Iran's retaliation following those joint US and Israeli strikes. Now, here is exactly what is so rapidly reshaping those calculations. Attacks on the energy infrastructure in countries around the Gulf region. Yes, most countries had expected Iran to retaliate with attacks on US bases dotted around the Middle East, but the surprise comes with the speed and the nature with which it turned to the energy infrastructure, all aimed at really raising the stakes. Take a look at this timeline of how quickly things have moved. Yesterday at just past 7 in the morning, so 48 hours into this conflict, news came through from Saudi Arabia that a drone had hit an oil refinery. And then, a few hours later, Qatar saying it had intercepted 2 Iranian drones which had been targeting energy facilities. And 8:30 this morning, a fire breaking out in the UAE at an oil facility. Debris from an intercepted drone, the suspected cause. Clearly then, an Iranian tactic to get Gulf countries to put pressure on their friends in Washington to end these attacks. But it might have backfired, uniting those countries with their modern military capabilities to consider offensive operations of their own.